My talk this morning is titled The REM State, Caetextia and the Development of Self-Concept. And I want to relate these three things together. And I'm going to start by reminding you of a line of poetry that you may have learned in your A-levels or O-levels. Great wits to madness are near allied, and not a hair's breadth that the two divide. It's long been noted that there has been and is a connection between madness and creativity, between genius and madness. Research all around the world has shown Nobel Prize winners, whether in the arts or the sciences, have an extraordinary amount of mental illness in their families. If these often creative geniuses themselves haven't suffered from mental illness, then you can be pretty certain there's above average levels of mental illness in their close offspring. And that's a piece of knowledge that's been well known. Less well known has been the work of Professor Michael Fitzgerald at Trinity College Dublin, Professor of Psychiatry there. But over the last number of years, he has written a number of stunning books on the relationship between creativity and autism. And he has shown, and if you read the books he has written, I don't think any reasonable person can doubt the connection he has established. And when you read the profiles of the personalities that he's looked at, it is quite clear that civilization would not have existed without Asperger syndrome. So on the face where there's an apparent contradiction there, is there not? On the one hand, evidence shows quite clearly there's a connection between schizophrenia, psychotic, manic depression and genius. On the other hand, we now have a very clear connection between autism and genius. And yet these two very conditions appear to contradict each other, because psychotism is about, that tendency in that direction is about strong imaginations. The REM state, getting into the imaginative mind. Whereas when we look at Asperger's and autism, we're looking at the opposite. We're looking at people obsessed by concrete reality. How can they both be linked to genius when they're the direct opposite of each other? Now, as pioneering as Michael Fitzgerald's research has been, he has not addressed that particular question, but it does remain an anomaly. But one I think that's fairly easily reconcilable if one starts to think about it in more depth. It's clear that for creativity, we do need a strong imagination. We do need to be able to imagine what hasn't yet come into human awareness. But it's also true that for real creativity to be there, there has to be an obsessive interest. There has to be an incredible focus, an incredible inquiring mind, the ability to pursue a question irrespective of public acclaim, at whatever price. So, for real creativity to take place, we need elements of autism and elements of the psychotic mind, the highly imaginative mind, disciplined by a very strong, rational, almost autistic mindset. So, for real genius, I suspect, is the marrying of those two tendencies together in balance. But of course, it's hard for nature to keep things in balance because genes are continually being remixed in every generation. And so not surprisingly, we will find that the mix goes slightly awry, and perhaps people who have a slightly stronger imagination, albeit an original one, if it's maybe drawn towards the arts, and if it's not sufficiently disciplined by the logical mindset, may well have a tendency towards psychotic illnesses. On the other hand, a person with a very strong focused mind that's not balanced by an imaginative mind, we may well be looking at some tendency towards Asperger syndrome. So, quite possibly, we need both elements from both of these mindsets to produce genius. However, in the general population, you don't find schizophrenia and autistic disorders correlated. A family member who's autism, in that family you're no more likely to get schizophrenia than you are in the general population, or in a family who's got patients suffering from manic depression or schizophrenia, you're no more likely to get an autism than you are in the general population. But I strongly suspect that for real creativity, the two do tend to run together in families. And that's why high levels of creativity and genius are perhaps so rare, because you've got to get both the mindsets running simultaneously and reasonably in balance, at least for some part of the person's life, in order to produce great creative insights. So let's look at the current prevailing theories that seek to explain Asperger's. The pioneer here in the field is Uta Frith. The first theory which he formulated was something called central coherence theory. And this would be shown, for example, if a young person or an adult were told a story and then asked to repeat the gist of the story, you'd find that the person with Asperger's would get bogged down in the detail of the story and wouldn't actually be able to pull together the main theme of the story. They get caught up in the details of the story. And so she said they had weak central coherence. But she also developed another theory along with her student, Simon Baron-Cohen. Another theory to explain Asperger's, which was the theory of mind, which was the idea that people with this condition are unable, are missing a module that enables them to read the mindset, what other people are thinking and feeling. So this is the theory of mind. Currently, Ute Fritz says that her major problem now is to find a deeper theory that can link these two theories together. And that's what I hope to present here this morning, is the deeper theory that can link these two theories together. So, we've introduced the term Caetextia as the name for a deeper theory that we believe pulls all these together more satisfactorily. We developed the term Caetextia from the Latin word caecus, meaning blindness, and contextus, meaning context. Because we believe that what's actually missing in Asperger's is the ability to perceive the deeper context in which facts are embedded, in which perceptions are embedded. It's actually an accurate description, we believe, of what underlies Asperger's. Also, we felt a need for another term as well, because this term as well, for two reasons. One is, the term Asperger's is now being applied as a diagnostic label to such a wide range of people and children. Children with IQs as low as 60 are now being termed Asperger's rather than autistic. And surely, if you're going to have a term that describes professors of physics at Cambridge and children with an IQ of 60 with the same term, it's ridiculous. It's absurdity. So we certainly need a more accurate term. And we believe Caetextia meets the bill, or at least we put it forward as meeting the bill. So Caetextia then is context blindness, and it's caused by an inability to keep track of multiple interconnecting variables and to reprioritise any change in those variables by referring to or calling upon a wider field of knowledge that contains the history of them. In other words, everything is embedded in a deeper context, and there's a failure to perceive that deeper context. This causes people with Caetextia to resort to one of two main modus operandi. One is logical straight line thinking, seeing everything in black and white. Or alternatively, some people may manifest just a problem with seeing context with showing hyper-associational mind, where they continue running from one thing that's somehow connected to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And their thought processes are undisciplined by reason. And so you try and rationalise and reason with them, and they seem to be with you. And the next thing they produce an association that totally is incompatible with the conclusion you've been at a moment ago. But the brain is off in a new direction, but there's somehow a connection between that and the previous thing. So this hyper-associationalism.